Hey everyone, welcome back to Tuckaway Pines. Today I wanted to bring you guys along with me because I'm going to be adding some delicious convenient meals to my shelves. I actually, just after the holidays, took advantage of the after holiday sales on some ham. Got it really cheap, so I figured that I'm going to take the ham and can it up into some delicious soups. And I figured I'd bring you guys along with me to show you how it's done. And I thought this was perfect because with it being really cold out now, this big cold snap coming in, nice easy soup on the shelf is great to have around so you're not having to waste your time cooking. It's all ready for you. Just warm it up and enjoy. The first soup I'm going to be making is a loaded potato soup. Very simple soup to make, and the ingredients you see here can be kind of switched out or exchanged for other ingredients that you might think would be good with loaded potato soup. I have a 10-pound bag of potatoes, which I do plan on using the whole 10 pounds. Some salt, pepper. I do have some pre-minced garlic. I have some onions. I even have a little bit of garlic powder because I am running low on garlic. Some cayenne pepper, some chives and sage, and of course some home canned vegetable broth. I am also going to add in some celery, and like I said, you can interchange some of these seasonings and ingredients to suit your needs. And like I said before, I'm going to be adding cooked ham with this potato soup as well. You can go for bacon if you wanted, or even some ground beef. It all works the same. So here I am peeling and chopping all 10 pounds of potatoes. I don't know if anyone knows any good brands for an automated potato peeler, but that would definitely go a long way in my kitchen since I don't have extra little hands to help me out. But yes, the next step is, once you have all your ingredients together, is to chop and prep them all. That way it is all done and ready to go so you're not scrambling around in the kitchen when it comes time to actually cooking. Alrighty, so here are all my ingredients all chopped up and ready to go. I have my celery, onions, potatoes, all nice and chopped up into similar sized pieces. It doesn't have to be super exact, but definitely around the same size. For my spices and stuff, I didn't really measure any of that out. I typically eyeball my spices when I cook. It's more fun that way. And of course my vegetable broth, which I will pop the lids off and just pour them in the pot, which is our next step, adding everything to the pot. Oh, and how could I forget the delicious holiday ham that I will be incorporating in all my canning dishes in this video for you guys today. So once I add all my ingredients, I will be cutting up the amount of ham that I need for this soup. But like I said before, once you have all your ingredients chopped up and ready to go, start adding all your stuff in the pot together and bring the heat up to a nice boil. Okay, so to dish out some measurements for you guys, I chopped up 2 full onions. I had about 1 clove of garlic's worth of pre-minced garlic. I wish I had more. I probably would have added 3 or 4 cloves. I have about 1.5 cups of celery, 10 pounds of potatoes, about 4 cups of ham cut up or cubed. Then I have 4 quarts of vegetable broth, and then about 1.5 cups of water. And like I said before, with my seasonings, I do kind of eyeball it based on how big of a batch I do make. But as I do cook, I do taste what I'm cooking and season as I go to my liking or to how I know my family's going to like it. I don't like to over salt or pepper though when it does come to canning food, because when someone does go for that jar, they can add however much salt and pepper they wish. I'd rather them taste the herbs and spices than just a bunch of salt. So. Okay, so my soup's been simmering now for about 30 minutes or so. Everything is actually cooking down really nicely. And this is the point where I would recommend you to get your jars all warmed up and cleaned up and ready to go, and get your canner going if you do plan on canning this soup as well. This is the time to get all that fun stuff ready to go. Because next we're going to fill our jars. So I have gone and filled my jars completely. I left about an inch and a half of head space. Filled it pretty much up to the shoulder mark there. I have 7 quarts, as you can see, but there is still some in the soup pot, so I could probably get a total of 9 if I really, really wanted. And I can show you that in a second here. So yeah, I have a pretty decent amount of soup left, so that'll be really exciting. So the next step, once you have your jars filled, is take a little pokey thing. I have a debubbler here, and just you want to swirl it around inside your jar just to pop any air bubbles that happen to be in there, release anything that's stuck under pieces of food, because air bubbles can cause seal failures. But once that is done, then you want to clean your rims. I like to use white distilled vinegar. Just use a clean piece of paper towel and just wipe it around your rims. This cleans up any food bits or oils or anything like that that could prevent your lids from fully sealing around your jar. It's an extra precautionary measure. Next is to put your lids and bands on. Make sure your lids are centered on your jar, and then when you do put your bands on, ensure that you are only tightening them finger tight. You don't want them too tight or too loose, otherwise they won't seal. Next, the fun part, to fill your canner. You obviously want to have it full and steaming and like kind of simmering already, getting warmed up. And then you want to load your jars in, and then depending on your model, you want to start warming it up so it can begin venting. I have a little spout right there that will shoot steam once it gets hot enough, and I will let that do that for 10 minutes. That's called venting. As you can see, it's steaming pretty good, almost like, like a steam engine. And you want to let that do that for 10 minutes. And again, depending on your canner model, you will need to add your pressure regulator. That way it blocks the steam and it allows, in this case, my gauge to start building pressure. You want to double check your elevation and ensure that you are canning at the proper pounds of pressure. It is based off elevation. For me, I need to be canning at 11 pounds of pressure. And I know I didn't mention it earlier, but for quart jars, you want to can for an hour and a half or 90 minutes. And then for pint jars or half pints, you want to can for 75 minutes or an hour and 15. As you can see, I am already up to 11 pounds of pressure, so this is where I start my time. I am canning at quart-sized jars, so an hour and a half is my time to can at. It has now been a little over an hour and a half, and I had turned the stove off. Now what I'm going to do, and what everyone should do for their health and safety, is to let your canner cool down completely. Don't touch the regulator, don't remove anything, don't undo the lid. Don't touch it, because it is still under extremely high pressure, and it could potentially explode and cause extreme bodily harm. So please, please, please just wait for your canner to cool down completely and come all the way down to 0 pressure. Then you can open it. I have finally let my canner cool down and come completely down to zero pressure. It is still rather warm, but I am able to safely remove my jars with my jar holder and place them on the countertop on a dish towel. That way they can continue to seal and rest completely before I put them on the shelf. And as you can see here, I'm pointing out one did fail. You could see the difference in the shape of the lids. The ones that did seal are more concaved, whereas the ones that didn't is convex. And then you could also see, to test the seals, I just pick up the jar right by the lid, and if the lid stays on, it's a good strong seal. As you can see, that lid just popped right off. But this jar is held on by that lid, so it's a good seal. And that failure, you can always go ahead, put a new lid on it and pop it right back in the canner and try and reseal it, or put it in the fridge and eat it the next day. So for our next recipe, we will be making split pea soup. I have 2 large bowls of my split peas. They have been soaking in water overnight because they were fully dried, and I wanted to ensure them to absorb as much moisture as possible. I'd hate to just throw dried beans or peas in a jar with water and then throw it in the canner, because those beans will absorb that moisture and you want everything to be covered under a liquid. So I have those. I have 2 onions, a nice bag of baby carrots that I'll chop up. I have about 6 more jars of vegetable broth and bay leaves and some allspice. And don't forget some salt and pepper as well. But here is what I will be using in this dish. Oh, and of course, the ham, the holiday ham, that'll be going in as well. And the next step is to just prep and chop up all my ingredients so I can just toss them all in the big pot. So here's everything chopped up. As you can see, 2 large bowls of the split peas. I believe it's about 4 16-ounce bags, if I'm not mistaken. I have, you saw one bag of baby carrots, so I chopped all those up. And then I chopped up the 2 onions as well. The ham, I got about 2 to 3 cups of ham, chopped and cubed up. And the next thing is to add it all together in one big pot. So I just went ahead, threw in the peas, the ham, the carrots, the onions, and then I'm going to be dumping in my broth. Once all your ingredients are together and your spices are added, feel free to stir it all in and turn your heat up and bring everything to a boil. And once everything is boiling, bring it down to a simmer and let it simmer for about 20 to 30 minutes. Once everything seems to have been cooked down nicely and is starting to get really nice and soft, that's when you start getting your jars and your canner ready. Here I'm getting ready to fill my jars. And the same with the potato soup. I gave about an inch and a half of head space, pretty much to the shoulder of the jar. And this is where I will go in with my debubbler and pop any air bubbles that are inside. Clean my rims to ensure that there are no failures this time around. And to put my lids on, center on my jar, and then tighten my bands around my lids finger tight. You don't want them too tight or too loose. Once your canner is loaded up with all your jars, put your lid on and turn the heat up and allow that little vent hole to start venting out that steam for 10 minutes. Make sure that vents out for 10 full minutes, and once that is done, you can add your pressure regulator to start building up pressure. Okay, so my 10 minutes are up. I am adding my pressure regulator, and I am going to keep my eyes on my gauge until I reach 11 pounds of pressure for my elevation. Again, double check your elevation to ensure that you are canning at the right pressure level. And remember, quart jars can for 1 hour and 30 minutes, and pints and half pints can for 1 hour and 15 minutes. As you can see, everything is all done, and you can still see it is still boiling inside that jar. Remember though, in order to take your jars out, you want to make sure that your canner is cooled down safely enough to handle and that the gauge reads to a full 0. You can see here that there's some lids that did not seal, but that's okay because I had just taken these out of the canner. So I'm going to give them their time to fully seal and cool down completely because you could see they're still boiling. So for our final recipe, I will be making a vegetable soup. Vegetable soup can be very versatile and very flexible. You can add any sort of vegetables you want as long as they are safe for canning. Here I have some lima beans, navy beans, soaked overnight of course. Some more celery, some more potatoes. I have some corn, carrots, and onions. Just some odds and ends that I did have enough of and am willing to use up so they go to a good meal. And of course, I will be adding ham, but you can also make this into a vegetarian style and omit any sort of meat or protein. And you can, of course, exchange these vegetables out for other vegetables if you so choose. But next, once you have all your ingredients, you want to, of course, peel, chop, and dice up anything that needs to be cut and sliced so that you are ready to go once it's time to cook. And also another additional note, as far as seasonings go, seasonings can be pretty flexible as well. Salt, pepper, sage, bay leaf, anything you guys would really like to add to enhance that flavor. But once all your stuff is nice and chopped up in its individual bowl, like you can see here, I have all my ham, got some potatoes, got about 2.5 cups worth of ham, what I could salvage off the bone. I got about I'd say 3 cups of potatoes, about a cup's worth of chopped onions. I have about 3 to 4 cups of whole kerneled corn, about 3.5 cups of lima beans, probably 4 cups of navy beans. Here's a whole package of baby carrots, and then about 2.5 cups of celery. And then the seasonings I chose was parsley, chives, some bay leaf, and sage. And of course, salt and pepper. And I did manage to find one last jar of vegetable broth hiding in the cupboard. So we're going to add him in there and then just substitute everything else with water. Okay, so once you have everything added into the pot, give it a nice stir and mix together, throwing in a last couple bits of seasoning. But once everything is added together and stirred up nicely, you want to bring your soup up to a boil, nice rolling boil, get it nice and hot, and then you want to bring it back down to a simmer for about 20 to 30 minutes or so. Once everything seems nice and cooked, nice and soft, now is the time to start filling your jars and getting your canner all warmed up and ready. Same goes for the other 2 recipes. I left about an inch and a half headspace, right about at that shoulder mark in the jar. And definitely don't forget to pop your bubbles since this has more chunks in it instead of liquid. So you want to ensure all those air bubbles are out. And of course, ensure that you wipe down the rims of your jars before you put your lids and bands on finger tight. And again, make sure your little vent is venting a nice, healthy, steady stream of steam. And you want that to Continue on for 10 minutes. After that 10-minute mark, place your pressure regulator on and start building that pressure. To ensure you are canning at the proper pressure, and double check your altitude and verify at the pounds of pressure that you need to safely can your items. And again, quart jars can at 90 minutes or an hour and 30, and pints and half pint jars can at 75 minutes or an hour and 15. Once you reach your desired canning pressure, that is when you begin your time. So I have officially reached 11 pounds of pressure, so now I'm going to start my time for an hour and 30 minutes. See you then. Once your canner has come down to 0 pressure and is cool enough to handle, you may open it and remove your jars. As you can see, my jars are still boiling hot, and there are a few that did seal already and some that haven't yet, but that's okay because everything is still so warm. I'm going to allow it time to cool down and properly seal if it's able to. That is it, everybody. Let's see what we all did. Here it is. Here is all the delicious jars of food that we've made together. This is going to save me so much time in the kitchen when I forget to pull something out or when I just don't feel like cooking a big meal for everybody after a long day of work. It'll also save me a lot of money because in case I do forget to pull something out, I don't have to run to a fast food place. I can just run down to my pantry and warm up a delicious jar of soup that's just ready to be eaten. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope you guys start preserving your own food if you don't already. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss out on any more fun preserving projects we do.